Happy Friday. What's going on, my people? This is your boy, Big Poppy, unsecured from the skiff. Happy to be here with you. Happy to chat with you. And like always, I got a few stories. I know I missed last week, so I apologize. So we're going to try to make that up to you today. I've got an idea where I'm going to try to push 3 videos to you. This will be the first one. And we're going to talk about some serious stuff. And I know I have some peers who are going to be a little bit perturbed at what I have to say. But I do have my coffee so that I can sit here this morning, wait for those responses to come in once I finish the video. And we'll see what they say. So let me take a sip here. I love coffee in the morning. So let's do it this way. I'm going to give you the effects of this first topic, okay? I'm going to give you the effects, and then in another video, I'm going to give you the symptom. Now, mind you, I served in the military 28 years. I have absolutely stayed quiet the last 3.5 years, going on 4 years, as it relates to really anything about the military. I've stayed quiet, okay? Haven't talked about it. Really got away from it. I retired 1 January 2018, and no top 3, no Chiefs groups, no this, no that. I looked at a couple of EPRs when I retired, as guys will typically do, gals will typically do. But then I've kind of pulled the strings and I've kind of started to slide away. I really did that for a reason. The biggest reason was I did my time. I had my chance. I leave the country. I go do some contract work out of the country. Moved back to the U.S. in 2019. Took a job, and I'm around military a little bit more. And obviously, you can imagine when you have your goodie boxes of stuff hanging on the wall or whatever the case may be, people want your opinion. They want to talk to you. They want to see how you feel. But you're also observing as well. You're looking at everything that's going on around you, but yet not providing an opinion. And I've said these things even when I was active duty some time ago. And I'll give you a little analogy of kind of what triggered this discussion, and how I came to this point where it was time to really start talking and trying to make changes for the better. None of this is to demonize or criminalize anybody that's wearing a uniform today. It's really so people have an opportunity to understand really what goes on inside the wire of any installation in the world. So if I use this analogy, and I've said this before when I've told stories when I was traveling the world, if you had 4 dudes or dudettes walking down the street, and a civilian determines just by looking at their appearance, their presentation, haircuts, how they walk, how they act, they're all in the military. If that person walks up to somebody and we'll say they're in the Marine, he says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" The Marine's going to tell you he's a Marine. That's his job. He's a Marine. If you ask the guy to the left or the gal to the left, and hey, what do you do for a living? Let's presume he's in the Army. He's going to tell you he's a soldier. If you get to the third person and you ask him, "Well, what do you do, sir or ma'am?" and they're in the Navy, they're going to tell you they're a sailor. When you get to the fourth person, you ask them, "Hey, what are you going to do?" or "Who are you?" and you know, "Who do you serve with?" or whatever the case may be. And let's presume they're in the Air Force. You know what they're going to say? "Well, I don't know if you understand. We have military treatment facilities. I work in a lab. I run machines and do analysis on blood." But not one time with any airman in the Air Force do they identify as airmen. And so back in 2012, I believe it was, I had actually wrote a paper for a publication that I was actually trying to get published in a newspaper, or even in the Air Force Times, I believe at the time. And it was titled "Lost in Identity." And there's a lot of reasons why the Air Force just cannot seem to get it right. and it usually starts at the top. Okay, you have your Secretary of the Air Force, your Chief Staff of the Air Force, your Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, and with each one of those people, just like supervisors, there comes this idea of what something written says. And then to make matters worse, we are constantly changing our doctrine. We are constantly changing what is right or what looks right in the beholder's eyes who's sitting in the seat at the table at that given point in time. And that's a problem, ladies and gentlemen. That's a huge problem. And you don't find that in the Navy, the Army, the Marines. They're held to a certain doctrine and history that they hold on tight and cherish. If you talk about somebody who cherishes history of who they are, the Marines would be a perfect example. And then we look at their evaluations. And what I've noticed is working in a joint environment, I've had the opportunity to write Navy evals, Army evals, Marine evaluations, along with Air Force evaluations. And they spend the majority of the meat of getting to the heart of what that person does in their capacity as a soldier, sailor, Marine, and that's it. None of this other BS means anything. And we want to sit around at this big table and we want to talk about this total person concept. And then we want to measure everybody equitably under a set of standards that I believe as a supervisor that maybe no other supervisor in the Air Force believes. And that detracts from the identity and the real reason for being. And so the point to all this discussion, for me at least, is in order to be better tomorrow, you have to define who you are today. Okay, how many classes you take, how many degrees you have, how many awards you've won, how many people you've shot in the face, none of that really matters. How do you perform your job day to day, period? And this idea, like, take the Navy. Will you ever find a 5.0 sailor in the Navy? From my discussions with Master Chiefs and seeing Chiefs mess and how they work, the Navy, they run their promotion. The enlisted, the senior NCOs run their promotion system. They will tell an XO who is promotable, who is not promotable, and that's where it ends. But for the Air Force, we rely on officers, and here's a problem with our officers. And this is not a condemnation of officers. This is a fact. When I grew up in the Air Force, who made a great officer great? Your NCO Corps did. We've lost all of that. The Air Force has lost all that. They are no longer at the tip of the spear, shaping, molding, developing young first, second lieutenants, captains, in the majors. We got officers now who don't know their head from a hole in the ground. And they don't know how to lead. Because the majority of those people at the higher echelons and levels are what? Pilots. So they're prima donnas, they're pilots, they get a pass, but yet we allow them to get a pass, and now our identity becomes warped even more. This whole idea that the only thing that I have to remember is September of 1947 is ridiculous. That's really the one thing that anybody in the Air Force can tell you. They can't tell you anything more about the history. The Army Air Corps. And look, you could put it in the Airman's Handbook, the PDG, the PFE, whatever the hell it's called today. You could put it in all these platforms, you could read about it. But you have to live it, you have to talk it. Okay, I can read anything you want me to read. That doesn't remember in 10 years I'm going to remember the stuff that I read to a T, to its entirety. We are missing a great opportunity to utilize probably the smartest group of people that the Air Force has ever had. And I'm not talking about officers, I'm talking about young enlisted people. I'm talking about eradicate this nonsensical uniform board so that we can continue to change our look. Since I've been in, we've went from, and I didn't wear these, so don't laugh at me, but I've seen greens, from greens to BDUs, from BDUs with name tapes in U.S. Air Force to a Velcro patch with your name and all that identifying information on it for about 6 months, to pull that off and go back to the name tapes, to you don't need to shine your boots, to not starch in your uniforms, from the BDU to the ABU, and then the ABU to the OCP. And then the question ultimately is, what's next? What's next? And throughout all that time that we are constantly changing, what have the other services changed? The Navy's got about 20 uniforms and they've stayed the same. Marines pretty much stayed the same. Army maybe had a little adjustment into OCPs, but they've been wearing OCPs for a while. Special Operation Forces for the Air Force have been wearing OCPs for a while. So that uniform is not new. But we have no identity, ladies and gentlemen. And we have no plans to get back to trying to have an identity so that we as a force can be proud of who we are and what we are and on equal footing. We're constantly, our eval system, I really don't care what anybody says, our eval system today is a little bit akin to the Navy. We pulled it a little bit. And it's a shame. It's a shame. So, but we had to get there to this point, to this discussion, because of a symptom. So later on, we're going to talk about the symptom. I got a lot more to talk about today, but we'll talk about the symptoms that are plaguing the Air Force still today. And we'll also talk about some other stuff as it relates to Ukraine and Syria, the military, and what I said probably, 4 to 5 weeks ago when I pushed out a note about to be or not to be. So I'm happy with Air Force leaders to have this conversation. I would be happy if Air Force leaders responded. And I know some will not agree with what I'm saying, but I know there's a lot out there that do. And I talk to them every day. We have lost, or probably, really, to be honest with you, never had an identity built around being an airman. All of us. And until we get that, we're going to continue to have the pain, the growth difficulties that we see with our airmen. We're going to continue to have problems. And look, it's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it, right? But I'm also speaking on behalf of others. So continue to hit me up, Unsecured from the Skiff. Big Papi's at it. It's a Friday, and I got my coffee. I got my notes. I've reached out to several people to gauge and inquire about their opinions, but I'm not going to put them out there, right? But just know there are people that I talk to. It's in a solo piece of work. So I love you guys. Happy to be back in the saddle, and we got some more difficult conversations we're going to get to here in a little bit. So appreciate it. Check this out. Maybe one day we can grow it. It could be something big, and we can do some good in this world, for this world, collectively together. All right. I love you guys. Be good. Unsecured from the Skiff, Big Papi. Hey, it's Friday. Freaky Friday. All right. Get after it. Peace.